with the team racing presentation. So here we go. Alrighty. So here is the team racing overview for the Cal Sailing Club. We'll just start out with what exactly team racing is. First off, we need to know what fleet racing is. That's what we typically do here at Cal. And that's just where every boat is for themselves and you just try and get the best score you can. Team racing is a little different. Typically, it's a 3 versus 3, and you round marks the opposite direction. The windward mark, you round to starboard. And it's just a combined score of all of the boats that finish. The course that we sail is a little bit strange as well. It's called a digital N. Basically, the windward marks, you round to starboard, and then the leeward marks, you round to port. And you have these long reach legs that allow for a lot of dynamic interaction between all the boats. Here we go. So the practice course that we'll be using for the Sunday clinic will be just 4 marks that we'll use to simulate the entire digital N. So we'll have the start, sail upwind to marks 1 and 2, round them to starboard, round the offset to starboard as well. Then we'll head downwind, round marks 3 and 4, the same marks that we started through, round them to port, and then sail upwind through the finish line. So what's the first rule of team racing? Well, it's to fleet race first. That basically means you want to sail fast and you want to still be looking at the course and going to the puffs and everything that you need to do for a fleet race in order to be a successful team racer. If you're slow, everything else doesn't matter. You're not going to win the team race. So how do you actually win the team race? Well, it's the team with the least combined score. You get 1 point for first place, 2 points for second place, and so on. And that leads us to certain combinations. So this is every single combination of finishing that you can get in a team race. And I know it looks pretty overwhelming here, but it'll get much simpler very quickly. These are them highlighted, whether or not you win or lose. You can see if you get first place, you win most of the time, but not all the time. If you get first, but then your other 2 boats get last, 5th and 6th, then you don't win. The other team does. So we can split these combinations into different plays. What we call play 1, play 2, play 4, and then chasing. And now chasing, that just means that you're completely losing. The other team has a 1-2, and you basically just have to sail fast to get to them. But we'll ignore that for now because it's not super important. So we'll just stick with play 1, play 2, and play 4. And here we can combine a lot of the play 1s into just you get a 1-2 anything or a 1-3 anything, and you win. So these are all the winning combinations. That's basically the biggest part of team racing, is your play 1, your play 2, your play 4. And everything else that we're going to talk about is about achieving these plays. So
Elliot, can you go back? Elliot, can you go back a sec to the winning ones? I don't know what.
Absolutely.
So there's a couple of expressions we have in the UK, which is first but not last. So if you're first and you're not last, you know you're winning. Okay, so that's like a super easy one. You can just yell out to your teammates, first but not last. The other one is 1-2 anything or 1-3 anything, as Elliot says. And then you've only got like these 3 more combinations. So like it's really not that hard to remember if you remember the first but not last, first, second, anything is a win, first, third, anything is a win. And then you just got the 2-3-4, the 2-3-5, and the 1-4-5. But the 1-4-5 even comes under the first but not last. So it's really, it seems like a lot, but it's not that many.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
As you're racing, do you got to keep an eye on when boats start crossing the finish line so you know where you're at?
So while you're racing, the entire time you're out there, you should be communicating with your teammates. Yeah. And so sometimes you'll switch between plays, but you should always know what play you're in, basically, 30 seconds, a minute after the start line, after the gun, you should know your play and you should know your role in that play. And we'll talk about that later on in the presentation. But basically, you know your play the entire race. So when you finish, you already know what play you're in, you know if you've won or lost, and you know what you need to do while you're racing.
And your crew, if you're like helming and like in a close haul, they should constantly being like 134 or like 124, just so you know, like, because you won't be able to see all the boats, but someone in your boat should be saying what combination you're in at the moment, basically all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, the crews play a huge role in that. So, okay, that's what team racing boils down to, the plays. How do we achieve them? These three things. We achieve them by passbacks, mark traps, and gapping and pushing. I'll explain what all these are later. But let's start out with gapping and pushing. So what is gapping? Very simple. You slow down an opponent, right? Pushing, not letting the gapping boat slow you down, right? Not too complex. So you do different strategies, upwind and downwind, to gap or push your opponents. So upwind, to gap, there's two things you can do. You can slow them with a wind shadow, or you can pin an opponent out to a side. I'll talk about what pinning is in a moment. But with the wind shadow, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Your wind gives off dirty air, and you'll slow down your opponent, right? But one thing to consider is your wind shadow is pretty different in different wind conditions. In heavy wind, it's almost straight back off your stern and extends a little further. And in light to medium wind, it's a lot further a beam of your boat, and doesn't extend quite as far back. And so where do you want to be when you're slowing a boat with your wind shadow? In light wind, you want your stern to be about at their shroud, and that gives the best angle for dirty air. In heavier wind, you almost want to be directly in front of them, and that will give them the most dirty air. And so these things are very important to understand, especially here when it's really heavy wind a lot. If you're in this position in heavy air, you're not going to give them any dirty air, and they're going to be sailing just fine. Okay. So also on spacing, if you get really close to the boat that you're trying to gap, you're going to hit them, and then you foul them, and you've messed up your race. So you really want a boat width or more of space between the boat that you're gapping and yourself. So how do we push the boat forward that's gapping us if they have a wind shadow? Well, it's not too complicated. Basically, this blue boat wants to tack out, right? Don't sit in the wind shadow if you don't have to. So that one is pretty simple. Pinning is a little more complex. So again, this red boat is trying to slow down the blue boat. And one way to do that is to prevent them from sailing around the course. So remember, we're rounding the windward marks to starboard. This blue boat isn't allowed to tack because the red boat is here preventing them. Yes, the leeward boat has right of way, but they do not have the right to tack. So a big thing to consider with pins is where you need to be positioned. Which one of these? These three are pretty good positioning for pinning the blue boat. This one up here is a little risky because the blue boat might be able to dip down and tack out, but all of these will work. These guys are what you want to avoid. If you're trying to pin the blue boat, you're slowing them down, you're gapping them, these won't work. The blue boat can wiggle free very easily. So gapping and pushing, we do it downwind a lot, but I'm not going to focus on them right now because it will get a little hectic if we do downwind gapping and pushing in the JYs in very heavy breeze. So for now, if you want to know more about it, you can look at all the resources, but we're going to skip this for now. Okay, balancing is a huge concept in team racing. And what it means is that two boats are equal distance to the next, or quote unquote, equal distance to the next mark. We'll see what that means in a minute. So these boats are pretty obviously balanced. They're on the same ladder rung. The wind is perfectly square to the course, and they're even with each other. These boats are not balanced because one is further ahead than the other. Yes. But when the wind shifts, it gets a little trickier. These boats are balanced. They're on the same ladder rung, and to sail to the mark will take them the same distance. These boats are not balanced, even though they look even, because this boat on the left is on a higher ladder rung. These boats are balanced, same concept downwind, same ladder rung. These boats are not balanced because of the wind shift. And so why is balancing important? We'll look at a situation here. These blue boats are completely losing, right? Both of them are losing their pairs, and they have no opportunity to pass their opponents. But let's see what happens if the red boats don't balance and the pairs get unbalanced. Right here where they come together, now there's opportunity for the blue team to pass some boats because they got unbalanced. So it's a very huge topic in team racing, very critical. So that's enough about gapping pushing. Let's talk about passbacks. Super critical part as well. A passback is basically just when you have an opponent in between you and your teammate, and you want to get the opponent behind, right? That's a very basic idea of the passback. So upwind, there's two types of passbacks, the front door and the back door. And there's a bunch of different names for each. Now I'm sure they have different names in the UK, and everybody has their own.
Never heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, these are the two types. So the front door passback, we can look at a little animation to show you what that is. You're basically using your wind shadow to slow down the opponent's boat so that you can get your teammate ahead. Now, a couple things to consider, and this is going to get very, very text heavy, but don't worry, we're not going to get bogged down with it. We're just going to speed through and you can look at it later. So if you're in the first position, right, you want to cover the two super hard, right? If you are kind of further away, 3 or 4 boat lengths, it's never going to work. Keep your mainsail tight, your boat flat to get the maximum amount of bad air. But be careful that you don't slow yourself too much to get yourself in position, because then the boat two can just kind of pass you, pinch you off, and then you're just behind them. And again, don't be too close when giving them bad air or you risk fouling. If you're the 3, right, your teammate's in the 1 and you're trying to get forward. So you initially just have to sail as fast as you can, foot off a little bit, get some speed, get out of the dirty air of the 2. And then once you're poked out a little bit, we can go back to the animation. So here in position 3, once they start to get poked out, they can start to pinch up a little bit, and that can just help finish up the pass back and complete it. And now this middle boat, the 2, we also call that boat the pig. They have to cover the 3 as hard as they're getting covered by the 1. So you have to give a ton of dirty air, but also being careful not to slow yourself down too much as well. And here's a huge thing that applies to all passbacks. You will lose the battle. And most of the time, you're not going to hold out forever because it's a 2v1. You'll eventually lose, but you're just trying to make the passback take as long as possible. So that's a big, big key. So we can look at a video of what a front door passback looks like. So here we have the 1, the 2, and the 3. The 1 is giving the 2 as much dirty air as they can. They're getting right up close to them. They're pulling in their mainsail. They're heeling to windward. And you see the 3 just start to accelerate forward and pass the 2. Now here, I think there was a little bit of a foul there, actually. So it's because the 1 got a little too close. But regardless, that's the general idea of the front door passback. And again, the wind shadow is super critical here. If you're sitting here in 7 knots, that's a great place to be, giving the 2 a lot of dirty air. If you're sitting here in 16 knots, no good. That passback's never going to happen. If you're sitting here in 7 knots, you are giving bad air to the 2, but you're also giving it to your teammate, so it's not the best. In 16 knots, though, this is the perfect spot to be for the passback. Okay, switching gears to the backdoor passback. Very, very different type of thing, but still on the upwind leg. Let us take a look at what this looks like. A little quick animation. And basically the whole idea of this passback is you're letting your teammate in the 3 tack out below. Once they do that, you're going to slow down the 2 while your teammate goes and sails fast in clean air. So again, very text heavy. We're just going to go through it quickly. If you're in the 1, you really have to make sure that you hold the pin on the 2. If you're too high up and the 2 can wiggle out and tack, then you failed. that pass back's not going to happen. Once your teammate's tacked out, keep slowing the two. Either give them dirty air or pin them out past ley line. And one of the biggest risks of the backdoor pass back is that you slide too far back on your pin. Because remember, if you're too far forward, the two can just wiggle out and tack out, and then you've done nothing. But if you get too far back, then you basically just give up the one, right? And then the pass back is completely nullified. So if you're in the 3, you just have to tack out as soon as you can. Now, one thing to note is the 2, the pig, is not just going to let you tack out. If you do a little duck down to try and tack out, the 2 is going to duck down with you, right? So you have to do some back and forth sometimes, bearing away, heading back up, to try and get enough space to get that tack in. And again, for the 2, the pig, do exactly what I just said. Don't let the 3 tack out, right? They bear away, you bear away with them. And one thing to also consider, if you slow down too much to hold the pin on the 3, then you've just given your opponents the perfect time to do a speed pass back. So this is probably one of the most difficult spots to be in when you're the 2 in a backdoor pass back. Because if you slow down just a tiny bit too much, you just get shot out the back in a speed pass back. And if you're a little too far forward, the 3 can tack out below you, and they've just successfully completed their pass back. And again, same thing as the front door. You will probably lose if you're the 2, but you're just trying to make it take as long as possible. And that's because while the other 2 boats are caught up with you and your pair of 3 boats is going really slow, you have 2 other teammates that are going fast. So that's why you want to make these pass backs take as long as possible when you're in the 2, when you're the pig. We can take a look at a backdoor pass back now in heavy wind. So here is a pass back happening, the 1, the 2, the 3. So this blue boat is pinned right now, but watch what happens that they do to get out of the pin. Big duck down, and then they have space to tack below. And now this blue boat and this blue boat 18 is going to continue to slow down the green boat, and eventually this pass back will happen. So that's a backdoor. Basic overview of these pass backs. Front door is great for light to moderate air if you're heading to the favored side. And the back door is great in any wind, but especially heavy wind, because the front door is much more difficult. And one of the biggest things that you saw in the video back here that we just watched, if the front door is not working, change it. If you just sit there waiting for your dirty air to affect the pig, you're wasting so much time. We see in this video here, it'll play, there we go. These 3 boats are initially trying to go for a front door, but this blue boat is not positioned very well to give the green boat much dirty air. And they're trying to go for the front door. You see he's almost ahead, but they switch it up immediately after they see it's not working and go for the back door. So that's a huge thing about passbacks. And again, passbacks downwind, we do them. They're a huge part of team racing, but we're not going to cover them right now.
And Elliot, can you just go back to the previous video with the tack out the back? Can anyone think of a place in fleet racing where what that blue boat did might be a useful thing to do? This has come up quite a lot at Cal in my experience of racing. So trying to like tack out the back of a boat that's pinning you. Can anyone think of a scenario where that comes up in fleet racing? Who's, yeah, Neeraj?
I mean, just at the start line when everyone's going through the line on the same tack.
It can be helpful there. It's also helpful who's been pinned out beyond the ley line at Cal because the person on top of you isn't paying attention. It happens quite a lot.
Yeah,
if you realize you're past the ley line, you can also do that tack back. And if the boat's not paying attention, which often happens, they will just sail on and you can get to your mark if someone's pinning you.
Yep, that's a really good point.
Another question about this thing that we're watching right now. So in this situation, I mean, it seems like it's effective only because the wind is like moderate to light. I'm having trouble imagining so I'm picturing your diagram of the wind shadow in heavy wind.
Yeah.
And it's only effective if you're basically ahead of the boat you're trying to slow down. So in this
Exactly.
situation, why would the blue boat not just immediately tack? Like how is this allowed to go on for like beyond a few seconds?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So in the video,
Are you asking why they started with a front door rather than going straight to the back door?
No, just in general, say the wind is like 16 knots and I'm trying to
Yeah.
slow down a boat, and you're saying the most effective way is if I'm basically ahead of them, right?
Yeah.
Because then they're in my shadow. Why would the pig like just continue to sit here? Why would they not just immediately tack? Does it take
Okay.
more than just me?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So if the pig tacked it, so let's say this blue boat is in the right position, they're directly in front of him where my mouse is. If the green boat tacks out, says, I'm not going to sit in this wind shadow, they've immediately just lost the pass back, because what's going to happen is the blue boat in the 1 is going to tack with them. And now all of a sudden, the green boat's just sitting in dirty air for that entire time, and the boat in the 3 is just good to sail clean air. And they'll sail much faster than the green boat, and that pass back will be completed in no time. Especially because in heavy wind, every time you tack, you lose a lot of speed, and therefore you lose distance compared to a boat that just sails straight.
The other thing for that is like looking the way we are now, the left-hand side of the course has the power because you're coming into the mark on starboard. If you tack off early, every single boat on starboard on the other team can pin you out as well. So if you were that green boat and you just tacked off to the right in this image, which is technically the left of the course, then like there's just no way you're going to get back, because every time you hit another boat, you're on port tack coming across. So like you would also lose a lot of power by tacking early in that sense.
Yeah, another great point. Okay, so again, downwind passbacks, not going to cover right now. The overview of the passbacks. They are the most important thing you can know for team racing. Most of these races are won or lost based on who can have the best, most successful and quick passbacks. They're all much more difficult to do in heavy breeze, but again, just super critical. So that's why this is the main drill that we do to practice team racing. So pig in the middle. This is the drill we use to practice passbacks. It is basically just continuous passbacks with your teammates. It's done in groups of 3. And the goal is to never reset the drill. You're just doing passbacks continuously around the race course. So we can take a look at what that would look like. Just do a standard front door passback. And then as soon as that passback is made, these 2 boats switch teams. And you just keep doing this all the way upwind, and you get a lot of practice doing these passbacks. And you can do backdoor passbacks as well with pig in the middle. You just want to do whichever one can happen the quickest. And then as soon as you get in the new position, immediately start and switch teams and go again. So pig in the middle is the main drill that we'll be doing during this team racing clinic on Sunday. So this will be a critical thing that we'll talk about a lot more during that clinic.
And just to interrupt there, when Elliot said they go around the course, that's very much the American way of training, it seems. In the UK, what we do is on a given day, we practice the first beat and we do piggy repeatedly on that beat, and you don't move on to any other leg of the course. And then the next day you would do the top read, so that you can either practice these piggies all around the course, or you can like focus on one specific thing and do it 100 times in a day kind of thing. So they're just different ways people train for team racing.
Yes, exactly. And so I think during our clinic, we're going to be doing more similar to what Penny said. We're going to be doing, half an hour of focusing on one area of the course and doing pig in the middle again and again on that area. And then we'll switch it up. Okay, so mark traps. Penny, did you want to take this section over or?
Oh, I thought I was in starts, Elliot. So I haven't got any more.
No worries, no worries. Okay. We're going to go through this quickly because it's pretty involved, but we have basically just some videos to go through for a mark trap at every single mark. So these are the 2 purposes that you'll have, the reason why you'll do a mark trap. You're either gapping, just trying to slow a boat down, or you're doing a pass back. We're just going to look at pass backs because anytime you do a pass back, you're basically just gapping a boat. So you can use the same techniques. Okay, mark 1. Let's take a look at what it will look like. Okay, so here we have mark 1 right here where my mouse is. And ignore these boats up top. We're looking at this green boat, this red boat, and this green boat. So another guy rounds the mark. This green boat is about to round the mark, but they don't. They sit here. And again, this is a pin happening right now. Boat 14 is pinning out boat 8. Boat 8 is not allowed to tack. And they hold it, and now 14 is releasing. Or are they? They tack, and they go right back up to head to wind, still pinning boat 8. This entire time, 15 is sailing fast, going around the mark, and now they're basically ahead. So you can take a look at that one more time, full through. Again, these 3 boats right here. This is the pass back happening. Green boat, orange boat, green boat. 14 holds the pin on 8. And even though they tack, they still hold the pin. So that tacking is a little bit of a difficult move because there's a lot of rules involved with that. But the big thing to take away is just getting past the mark and not tacking, just holding them. And you can hold this for a very long time. So that's a mark 1 mark trap. Let's look at mark 2. Okay, so this is a little bit of a grainy video, but here's mark 2 over here. And we're looking at this pair of boats. So it's a little bit difficult to tell what's happening. But the whole idea is that this red boat is taking out the black boats to allow their teammate to sail around. And again, it looks very chaotic and confusing, but we will talk about this a lot more on the clinic day.
And in general, if you can do so like when you convert from one score to another, we call it a conversion. In general, doing the piggy conversions is the most controlled way, and you only end up doing mark traps when that hasn't worked. So you can see this gets pretty chaotic in a way that you don't want if you're trying to do the conversion. So like in general, mark traps are more chaotic, particularly at marks that aren't mark 1, than these piggy pass backs, because people can kind of go rogue pretty quickly and it all kind of disintegrates.
Yes, that is true. And it can be very easy to, so right now during a proper team race, you see these motorboats going around. These are umpires, and they go around to decide who broke the rules or not, because it's very hard to self-regulate when you're in a team race. And so around the marks, it's very easy to get a wrong foul because the rules are so close and the situations are so complex. So again, like Penny said, very risky, very chaotic. You want to mainly just do the pig in the middle pass backs in the middle of the course. So as mark 2, let's take a look at mark 3. Mark 3 is probably the most common mark to do mark traps on. So again, we're going downwind. We're going to round this mark to port. This is mark 3. And this is the pass back we're looking at right here. So you see this green boat slowed down, and now right over here, they're taking the blue boat up, and their teammate can sail right around. You saw back here very clearly, green is in a 1-3. And now the boat in the 1 takes out the 2, and now green's in a play 1-2.
Alec, can you pause for a second?
Absolutely.
Just a question for everyone. So green was in 1-3 there. So 1-3 anything is a winning combination. So why did green do this? Why didn't they just leave it? It was already a winning combination. What's the advantage of converting from 1-3 to 1-2? Other than it's fun. Can anyone think of anything? Okay, so if you imagine you've got the blue boat, so they're in 2, but if there's another blue boat in 4, what 2's going to want to do on the next reach is basically do a pass back and convert their teammate through to sort of the 3 position. So in general, if you and your team have an enemy boat between you, it's not a stable situation because that enemy boat is going to be hitting back on the person behind you. So anytime you can go from a 1-3, which is unstable because someone is in the middle, to a 1-2, you take that opportunity. So that's why they're doing this, even though it's a winning combination. It's a more stable winning combination to do that conversion.
Exactly. Going to an unstable 1-3 to a very stable 1-2. That's a huge part of team racing, is making your combination more stable. So let's take a look at Mark 4. Now this one is almost just for fun because we probably will not be doing this. But we're about to see what's called an up and jibe. It's here we had some fouls here, rounding Mark 3. Now they're on the bottom reach leg, about to round Mark 4. So let's pause here. Blue is in a 1-3-4. Okay. Green is in a 2-5-6, right? These guys both had to spin. They both did fouls. The only chance here is if this green boat can take out both the blue boats, or the boat in first place can take out the green boat, and then blue goes 1-2-3. Let's see what happens. So Mark 4 is over here on this side of the screen. They're coming down on a reach to try and round it. The boat in first place, blue boat, jibes onto starboard and is heading right at the green boat on port. Green has to avoid, they have no choice. And that was a very clean up and jibe, 1-2-3 for blue. That one's very fun. Okay.
Another reason you might want to do that, you might look at that situation and think, oh, that wasn't really necessary. Sometimes team racing championships come down to point count back. So actually having a 1-2-3 versus a 1-2-4, that's one fewer point, and that can also make a difference. So sometimes you even if you're winning, you will do conversions just to gain more points if it's like a really, really close event.
Yes, exactly. In tiebreakers, it often goes down to your specific combination and basically how much you won by. But most of the time, it is just the number of wins compared to another team's number of wins. Okay, so here we've talked about gapping, pushing, passbacks, mark traps, all the moves you do to make the plays. Now we'll finally talk about the plays. Here we go. So you have combos for each play, and then you have rolls for each boat in the combo. So again, a review, all the combinations here, all the winning combos, split into plays, condensed down. We're just simplifying it more and more. And here we have the winning combinations. But like Penny mentioned earlier, some are stable, some are not. Here we go. Winning are good, stable are better. These are the stable winning combinations. This is basically it. This is a huge part of team racing. You're in 1-2, 2-3-4, or 1-4-5. Now 1-4-5, play 4, is stable, but only under certain conditions that we'll talk about later. So this is a good sheet. This was sent out in the announcements that just kind of shows where you should be looking, whether you're playing forward or playing back, as it's called, in every single combination. It looks pretty complex, but you can just take it one at a time. And we're going to go through these and talk about the roles of each boat. So play 1, we have stable and unstable. If you're in a stable play 1, these are the roles. You have the 1, the 2, and the X. If you're in the 1, you have to balance 3. If you're in the 2, you balance the 4. If you're in the X, you're acing. Very fun role. We'll talk about that in a moment, but for now, what we mean by balancing the 3 and the 4 is that these boats are going to pair up. And so here I'm showing an example of rounding marks 3 and 4, and then they're going onto the final upwind to the finish. So when going onto the final upwind, the boat in the first will pair up with the boat in third, boat in second will pair up with the boat in fourth. And then they'll balance them on the upwind. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So here, these 2 blue boats, they're in play 1, 1-2. The boat in third place tacks out, but the close blue boat does not go and follow. The far blue boat does, the boat in first. And basically the reasoning for this is that so that the most advantaged boat can pair up with the most advantaged boat on the other team. It's less risk for the blue team. And now for this entire upwind, the blue boats will just be trying to balance the orange boats, basically making them on the same ladder rung. That's the whole idea of this.
So just as a question for you, why not just let like the orange boat's behind? Why not just let him go to the other side of the course? Why does blue tack with him? Can anyone think? Why did orange put that tack in? What are they hoping is going to happen?
We can take a look at this in a moment. I believe here we have what happens when you don't balance. Basically, if these red boats just kind of ignore what's happening and just sail their own race, what'll happen is this. The pairs will come together again, and the blue boat will have a piece of a red boat because a wind shift might happen, or boats on one side of the course might have a better breeze. There's lots of reasons why one side of the course will be more advantaged than the other. So these red boats are just trying to make sure the blue boats are always on the same ladder rung. So this can never happen. Okay, so that was stable play one for the 1 and the 2. What does the X do, right? The other boat, they can be in 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th, it doesn't matter. They're acing, which means you're trying to just slow every boat behind you. So this red boat is just trying to take out these 2 blue boats, and they can do what's called, they can do an up and jibe like we just saw. There's all sorts of things. Basically, you're just using all the tools in your gapping arsenal to try and slow all the boats behind you. And that's just to create a more safe play one, right? Because what's better than a play one? Well, a play one when all your opponents are super far behind, then they really have no chance to get anything.
I think this is something that when you say like Cal, it's kind of hard to understand, but a lot of the lakes they do team racing on, the wind is very flicky and it's very shifty. So just because boats are in 5 and 6, there is no guarantee that on the final beat, a gust won't come through from one side and they could end up in 1-2. So like at Cal, yeah, there's not that much difference in speed on the final beat, but like on small lakes, there is. So these big gaps just mean like whatever happens with the wind, 5 and 6 are not coming through into a higher position.
Exactly. Yep. So, oh, here we go. We can take a look at some very fun gapping. So here, red, very clear 1-2. And a lot of the time, you know, if you're just fleet racing, you'll just sail around the course. But no, this boat back here, the X, is just acing. They're just being a wrecking ball, just causing all sorts of chaos over here, rounding Mark 4, going to the final beat. So now there's a big gap between the first place boats and all of the other green boats. And this is pretty stable. This will be hard for red to lose. So that's the reason why you want to ace. Okay, an unstable play one, a 1-3X. So basically, if you're in an unstable play, you want to get into the stable play. So if you're in a 1-3, you want to get into a 1-2. So if you're the 1, you got to pass back the 2. If you're the 3, you want to complete that pass back. So you're coordinating with your teammate in the 1 to make that happen. And then if you're the X, you're still acing. So again, we can look at how these pair up. The 1 and the 3 make that pass back happen, and then the X is acing. Okay, play 2. This is often regarded as the most stable play. We'll see why in a moment. But again, 2 types, stable and unstable. The stable play 2, you have 2, 3, 4. The 2 tends to push the 1 forward so that they don't come back and mess up anything that you're doing. But sometimes they can play back. That's kind of an interesting role that has a lot of dynamic to it that we're not going to go fully into right now. The 3 needs to balance the 5, and the 4 needs to balance the 6. Very similar to a 1-2, except you're in the back of the pack, not the front. So again, this is how the boats pair up. The 4 takes the 6, and the 5 takes the 4 takes the 6, and the 3 takes the 5, and then the 2 pushes the 1. And again, these 2 red boats are just trying to balance the 2 blue boats behind. And it's very hard to win against a play 2 when this red team is very good, because basically this boat in the 1 doesn't matter at all. It's basically just a 3v2. These 3 boats keep these 2 boats in last, and that's an unfair game. So usually if these red boats are good, it's very hard to break it up. So that's why it's considered an incredibly stable play. And if this boat in the 1 tries to come back to help their teammates at all, they're just going to give up the 1, and then red goes 1, 2, 3. So again, very, very stable play.
If you're this blue team, this is just a horrible position to be in. You've either got to hope 5 and 6 are the fastest sailors on the planet, so they'll get through on their own, or you've got to cause carnage and a mark trap and just hope that sufficient carnage breaks out, that lots of people get spins, and that's it. It's just a horrible, horrible position to be in, because you've got 3 boats before you can get to your team, and you're like, oh no, how did this happen? So yeah, it's the
Exactly. Yep. Okay. So now let's look at the unstable play 2. So the 2 and the 3 want to get their teammate back up into the 4, right? So the 2 and the 3 are going to double team the 4. That's basically where both boats are working on the pass back, trying to slow the opponent in 4th place. And then the 5, again, just trying to make that pass back work, get back into 4th place. And fun fact, this is the most unstable winning combo. So if you finish in a 2-3-5, you'll win, but it is very unstable to try and hold through the race course. So you want to try and convert to the stable 2-3-4. So again, pairing up like this, the 2 and the 3, double teaming the 4 to try and make this pass back happen. And that can look something like this, or something where these 2 red boats are giving a ton of dirty air to the blue boat, and their teammate can sail right by. Okay, let's look at play 4. Play 4 is very interesting. So there isn't a stable and an unstable play 4. There's only one winning play 4, and the other type is losing. So the stable play 4, 1-4-5, the boat in first place just stays in first, but they don't sail off into the sunset. They stay close to the race in case they need to be a part of it and be active. The 4 will push the opponents in 2nd and 3rd forward, and the 5 is going to gap the 6. This is the most fun role in all of team racing, the 5 and a play 4, because you're just trying to never let that 6 finish the race. The only way a play 4 is stable is if you have what's called the 4-5 gap. Basically right here in between these 2 boats, the 4 and the 5, you want a huge gap so that you stay 1-4-5. So this is how the boats will pair up. This boat in 4th place needs to push the 2 blue boats forward, because these 2 blue boats are going to try and double team him and stop him from progressing through the race. And then this boat in the 5 is just trying to gap the 6. Mark traps, slowing, pinning, anything they can do to not let them get around the course. Never let them finish. And then if you're in a losing play 4, 1-4-6, your only chance is to make this pass back happen. The 4-6 pass, or the 4-5 pass back. The 4 needs to pass back the 5, and the 6 needs to get in position to make that happen. A mark trap, a front door, a back door, either way you can, make that pass back happen. So this is the only thing that matters if you're in a 1-4-6, is this 4 passing the 5 back.
And in this picture, if you go back a second, what pass back are the blue boats going to be doing, do you think? Trying to do at the same time as you're trying to do that one. Can anyone think what blue boat might be trying to do a pass back at this point? So what might the blue boat near Mark 4 want to do?
Like the 3rd place blue boat, we want to slow down the boat behind them so that you can get into 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so this is the problem, is like you're trying to do a pass back, but the other team's trying to do one as well. So you've got to like get it done before they get theirs done. So that's why we practice these 3 boat things a lot, but in reality, there's always multiple of them going on the course, which makes it harder.
Exactly. That's a huge thing to consider when team racing. We've been focusing on the red team this whole time, But if you take a look, the red team is losing play 4. Blue team is in the 2-3-5 that we just talked about. So they're going to be trying as hard as they can to double team their opponent and get into a stable play 2. So again, like Penny said, you're trying to do one thing and the opponents are trying to do the complete opposite. All the plays are opposites of each other and the roles are opposite. So it's just who can execute that pass back the fastest. Can this 4-6 pass back happen first? Or will this 4-5 pass back happen? Okay, so here's just an overview of all the roles in the stable plays. So you can just look at that later. But for now, let's look at a section of a race. So here we have Boston College versus Georgetown. They're just rounding Mark 4, and we saw part of this, but let's look at the full leg. So these boats have just rounded Mark 4, and they're heading upwind to the final beat. Okay, pausing here. Who can tell me what combination green is in? So we have a boat in first. This pass back is happening, but this green boat is still in third place, or maybe not because this blue boat's ahead. So fourth place. And then the last green boat is very solidly in sixth place. So green is in a 1-4-6. They're in a losing play 4. And so then the opposite, blue team is in a winning play 2, but it's an unstable play 2. They're in a 2-3-5. So here's this pass back that's trying to happen to make it go from a 2-3-5 to 2-3-4. And this is the pass back we saw before. They try to do out the front, but it's not quite working because heavy wind. It's very hard to do out the front. And while this is happening, you can pay attention to the other side of the screen. The other blue boat is balancing the green boat in the 6. So this pass back isn't working. And they say, okay, screw the out the front. We're going to go out the back. We're going to do a back door here. 16 ducks down, tacks away. And now green team's in an interesting position. So this green boat in first place is thinking, I might be able to go play 1 right here. If this green boat ducks down and starts to execute this pass back, they might be able to go play 1. But the risk is the blue boats on the other side, the left side of the race course, will get ahead because of a shift or a puff. Looks like the boat in the 1 decided not to do that because he was a little worried that these guys were going to get ahead out left. And now the blue boat is just continuing to hammer on green 13, giving them tons of dirty air and trying to balance out the green boats in 5th and 6th right now. So again, blue is in play 2. They're 2-3-4, but they have to keep working to hold the 2-3-4. If 18 just sailed off, 13 might pass one of these guys, and then green would be in a play 1. We got a wide shot. The finish is up here on the left. And we have all these boats converging. And you can see very clearly here how the play 2 works. You have blue boat here, and blue boat here. They're covering every side of the race course and keeping these 2 green boats in last place. This blue boat is going to attack on the green boat here. And you can see Georgetown's just doing a fantastic job of balancing Boston College in green and making sure they keep these 2 boats in last. And so this entire time, the green boats in 1-5-6 are trying to unbalance, but it's very difficult to do. And the boat in first place is trying to do something, but there's not much they can do. Blue team has a very solid play 2. And they're just going to cross the finish line like that. Okay. So that's mostly what I have. Penny is gonna talk about starts now.
Can
But-
I share, Elliot? You need
Yeah,
to enable that.
absolutely.
I would say as well with the vocab, like when Elliot says play two, don't worry too much about that. Like we didn't even use that language back in the UK. So a lot of this is different. So like you could also, if you're like sailing with people you don't know, you can just be like, go for 1-3 or go for 1-4-5. And like that's again is language that people use in different parts of the world as well. So there is a lot of specific vocabulary. Don't worry too much about it. And I've learned from this that it's different across the ocean as well, which is super fun. So you won't always find it. Okay, let's talk quickly about starts, but I'm just gonna, sorry, a second. Gonna encourage some audience participation. Okay, can you all see my PowerPoint? Yeah, okay, what position, what's here and which team is winning? What positions do we have? Someone yell out, what is red in?
1, 3, 4.
1, 3, 4, so is red winning?
Yes.
Yes, awesome, okay. What about this one? What play do we have? No, as in what positions do we have? Don't worry if you can't remember them. Who's winning and what is red in?
Red's in 1, 4, 5 and is
Yep.
winning.
So it's winning, yeah. What about this one? What is red in? So 1, 5, 6, right? So that's losing. So if you're struggling, another way you can remember this is there's 21 points in a team race. 1 is 1 point, 2 is 2 points. So if your team's points add up to 10 or less, you're winning. So if you can't remember all these combinations, you can just like sum the numbers in your head if you're good at maths, and that's another way of doing it. So this is, as Elliot said, the worst position to be in as red because it is very hard to do anything in this particular
So
situation.
this one, blue is winning.
Blue is winning, yeah, but red is having a horrible time. Yes, okay, the starts. Realistically, how this works out, and I think this is just like historically how it's always gone, is there are basically 3 pairs on the start, so 3 people from each team. What generally happens is the pin end, so the 2 boats which are starting down at the pin end of the line, they tend to do their own thing, and then the other 2 pairs, which we call starboard and middle or boat end, because in team racing, it's almost always an actual committee boat rather than a buoy. So that's like boat and middle, those pairs tend to work together. So what happens is in a given team racing team, you have a position. So they will say, Ben, you are the pin boat for your team, or like Niraj, you are the middle boat, and Elliot is the starboard end. And you know those positions, and you generally keep them like all year so that you know what you're doing in each of those. So basically in that 3 minutes before the line, you're trying to work out like who is the other pin boat if you're the pin. And realistically, you kind of know because people stay pin for their entire lives. So you pretty much know which boat is yours. So the pin end of the start line, basically this would be the pin lay line in this situation. So if we've got say like 5 or 10 seconds to go before the start, do we think blue or red is in a better position here?
Very red.
Penny? You'd like to be boat red?
I think
Why would you like to be boat red? It depends on the wind. That could definitely be the right answer. Winds.
Because in 5 seconds, the blue boat is gonna hit the start line.
Yeah, so this is basically as pin end, you have to decide if you want to lead or if you want to follow. So in this situation, if you've chosen to follow the red boat, you have to know the time to the line super well. So you are saying, okay, I've let blue go ahead. They probably think they're going to win, but you've got to bank on the fact that you can push hard enough in that final 5 seconds that this boat will pop out over the line, okay? So generally in heavy winds, you want to follow in because you can generally push people over. In lighter winds, what might happen to red in this situation?
Wait, so why? I don't know if why would red be allowed to push the blue boat forward in any sense?
It hasn't, like in this exact diagram, it hasn't quite got room, but basically just you being there, they know that you're gonna go underneath, and the moment you get to here, you push, right? So in reality, you are actually tailing, and that is enough. It pushes blue forward because they know you will just go underneath the hook. So they're like kind of going forward at like a slowish rate until you get that hook, but they are definitely like afraid that it's going to happen, and it's enough to force people forwards.
Got it.
In light winds, what's going to happen to red maybe if they get their timing wrong? So say they don't push hard enough. Say, you know, you get to the start and that's go. What position is red now in?
They're in the wind shadow.
They're in dirty wind, exactly. So this is when, if you're generally you put on your team the person on the pin end who is the fastest sailor, because whoever comes off the pin should end up in one by the mark, because the other two boats are going to be messing with each other, and you'll see that in a minute. So you basically have to decide, it's all about time and distance. Like, how long do I think I am from the start line? Maybe you're sitting in the water and you know you're 30 seconds of sailing time away and you've got 40 seconds on your clock left. You might be happy like leading in that scenario. Whereas basically you've got to decide early on, and this is like a really useful thing to practice for for fleet racing as well, sorry, it's like, do I want to lead in or do I want to follow in and push people over? And it would depend massively on the wind. Elliot, anything to add for that?
Concept of pushing can often be kind of difficult because you're like, wait, the red boat is clear astern. They're the giveaway boat, right? They can't just ram into their stern. But it's all about the threat of getting that leeward overlap, getting that hook. And then once you have that, if you're within 30, 20 seconds, you have complete control of the blue boat. You can push them over the line, exactly like that. You can push them over the line. The blue boat is really screwed here if it's any time close to the start. So that's the whole threat of pushing. And we've talked about this a lot in fleet racing as well, because this is huge in fleet racing as well as team racing. A lot of the time on the start line, you'll need to defend from another boat trying to hook you. So this is a very useful skill to know for fleet racing and team racing.
The absolute best case scenario as pin end boat is that this happens. You manage to persuade red. So you know exactly where that ley line is as blue. And you manage to persuade red to dive under you. And then they think they've got you. And then they realize they're under the ley line and they can't cross the line. Realistically, most people who know what they're doing, who are allocated as pin boat, they know exactly where that pin ley line is. And they are not willing to sail below it. Because the moment you sail below that pin ley line, you are toast. And that's true in fleet racing as well. I'm sure you've all done it. And it's a horrible place to be at the start. So basically, pin boat, your rule is where is the ley line? Know it bang on, and then work out the time to the mark and whether you want to push or pull to come in. The starboard end is a lot more interesting. So say you're blue, your overarching goal, the best case scenario is that you would pin one or more red boats out at the start. So this red boat here that I've selected, what rights does he have? Does he have any rights? Can he call for room to start?
Nope.
Nope. He can't do anything. So if you're the red boat in this situation at like maybe 15 or 20 seconds to go, what might you want to do?
Oh, like a circle.
Yeah, so you would just cycle around, you would tack out, and then you would kind of, come around the back here and start further down the line. So generally what this boat wants to do is basically find out where is the starboard ley line. And then you'll all be like coming along near the starboard ley line, like 20 or 30 seconds to go. And you want to try and get one of your opponent's boat above that ley line so that they're going to get pinched out. Why is this also a good place to have the red boat? Why are the two blue boats happy with where they've put red in this situation? What's happening to the red boat wind-wise?
It's in both of their wind shadows, sort of.
It's going to have absolutely horrible wind at the start. If you think about the fact that these boats probably don't have their sails in all the way, they've probably both got their sails flapping a little bit because they're trying to kill time. You're just going to have a horrible, horrible time here. There's just absolutely no way you're going to have any speed when you start out. So the reason that the starboard and the middle tend to work together is it's a lot easier to like pin boats if you are working together, because it means someone can like come under and like help you out if you haven't quite got them. Or another thing, like, if this boat's here, blue can also be like, say this boat is out of the way a little bit. This boat can also kind of block that tack as well so that they can't cycle. So generally, these ends work together quite nicely. Elliot, do you want to add anything to that?
The same thing. Cycling around oftentimes can It only works if you have enough time. Otherwise, you'll just be completely hosed. But another thing to know, if that blue boat sitting right at the boat end of the line is any good at all, they're never going to let you in. A lot of people I know will kind of just sit there luffing above, like, oh, they'll accelerate, they'll go away. They'll never leave, and you're just going to be sitting there completely pinned out, and they can sit there forever, and they're just gapping you right off the start. So
Elliot's right, because in a fleet race, this happens in fleet racing quite a lot. Blue wants to win, right? So like, sure, they're there, but the moment it's go, they're off. In a team race, you win the moment you individually, if everyone in your team manages to hold one person behind them, they've won. So as long as that boat can make sure that red's behind them, it doesn't matter if they're in a 5-6 or a 1-2. Yeah, as Elliot says, they will stay there forever. So it can be quite useful in fleet and team racing before the start to work out how long does it take to do a cycle. Like if someone's holding the starboard ley line at Cal and you're 15 seconds to go, if you know that you can cycle round and come in on the line in 12 seconds, it's the right thing to do rather than wait. So it's a really useful thing to like work out how long that takes in the wind conditions that you're in. Any questions on that, or should we watch a video of a team race and then we can stop for the night? Any other questions on this? Okay, 1 second. Right.
In being in a position where you are just hanging out at the boat end, isn't that dangerous in the sense that you can yourself be headed up by a lured boat?
So this is when it's interesting having this boat, right? This changes things from the Cal situation, because they can't really luff you into this gap because there's like a boat there. Once you're there, you can kind of sit there indefinitely.
Oh, so if there's a committee boat, is a lured boat not allowed to luff you sort of
because it's
into it?
an obstacle. I mean, Elliot, this is how you do it in the US, right? It's an obstacle. Once you're there, you're safe.
Nebulous, but basically, like, you know, if you've been there and you're sitting there, they can't head you up into the committee boat and force you to hit it. Different from if you barged in there, then you have no rights. But if you're kind of established there and you've been there and another boat comes up, they're not allowed to just head you up. It's not an obstruction, it's something else.
So you can't call room on it, but once you're in there, they can't smash you into it either. So that's why it's kind of a trick. Like to sit here, you have to be able to hold your position extremely well without drifting down the line and without sailing over the line. But if this committee boat is quite big, it's actually quite a big space that you can sit in as the starboard. But then you're starting with no speed at the start. So it depends on the wind, whether that's a favorable thing to do or not.
Yeah. Penny, would that be a room to keep clear thing? I'm not sure exactly which rule that is, but that kind of gets into the nitty gritty of the rules.
Okay, so let's watch this race. Can everyone see this big enough?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming in. This is the time at the top. So you've got 48 seconds. So do we see already that the pin boats on the right and the other two have paired up into this 2 and this 4? Can everyone see that? So these boats are your pin. These will probably be your middle and your starboard end, and they tend to swap around a lot. So we can see they are coming in. So you've got 43 seconds to go. And they're all quite near the starboard ley line. So the pin boats haven't gone down to the pin ley line yet. So you can see orange is probably trying to get on the starboard ley line now. And you see they've managed, blue is now above the starboard ley lines. They've managed to hook them out. But they're pretty early. Look, it's 22 seconds to go. And they're quite close to the line. So blue could cycle at this point quite easily. And now if you see there, this is where the middle and the starboard work together. So this boat decided he was too early and also above the ley line. So this other boat, the middle boat, came in and basically re-established this hook. So this is how the starboard and the middle can work together to constantly like cycle to keep those blue boats hooked out. Okay. And now what have the pin boats done? Can anyone see they've now pulled away from the fleet? What is blue trying to do, the blue pin? Anyone guess? So he's got 10 seconds to go. Do we think he's going to be over? No? So he's trying to get red in his wind shadow now, right? That's he wants to lead in so that red starts behind him. So let's see if that works out for him. And then there's general carnage going on at the starboard end. Orange has now pinned blue. And we've started. So you're blue. What's your combination?
Winning.
1, 3, 6. It's not winning.
1, 3, 6. Yeah. And is your 3 that looking that good? It's not
No,
great.
they could pass back pretty
Yeah.
easily.
So I mean, at this point, the first kind of few minutes of the race, people tend to pair up a little bit, but mostly just fleet race to see what's going to happen, because it's kind of hard to know how everyone's going to come out of this. Because there's often a lot of protests near the start, and you don't want to do anything hard until those have been resolved, because you don't like hook a boat that then gets spinned, because you're like, oh, that was a waste of my time. Okay, so it's steadying up a bit now. So what positions are we in as blue? So we've got this blue boat, this blue boat.
2, 3, 6 still.
Yeah, 1, 3, 6. So again, it's like, I think they're just going to keep fleet racing this for a while to kind of see what's happening while kind of going along. So like this orange boat has tacked and blue decided to tack with them because they didn't want to lose their 1 by them getting a shift on the other side of the course. Elliot, feel free to add anything on this beat. I'm just kind of hard to watch all the boats at once. I can pause if you shout pause.
I got a question.
Yes.
Right now, why isn't blue falling off to sail fast? By falling off, he'll sail faster and create a wind shadow for boat number 2.
Do you mean this one here?
Yeah.
Probably to an extent because he wants to be sure that he keeps 1, which in this, because 1 is such a powerful position, you don't want to give it up on the first beat if you don't have to. Because if he comes really close to orange, but kind of screws it up, there's then a good chance orange is going to overtake at the mark or the next leg. So he's kind of being relatively conservative to like keep 1. People generally are quite funny about trying to keep 1, even if it's not necessarily the right thing to do.
And on the first leg, there's kind of a general rule that you don't do any team racing until the pairs have crossed each other. I'm not sure if they do that in the UK, but like until you have the pairs that are established and they cross each other, you're kind of just still fleet racing with some
or
exceptions.
until like at least this point it's suddenly become clear what the pairs are. Before this point it wasn't even clear what the pairs are, so you're just like kind of waiting for it to fall out in the wash.
Yeah.
Okay,
If there's a very sorry.
No, go.
If there's a very clear pass back that you can do and a conversion that's immediate, then yes, definitely go for it. Fleet race on the first leg, but it's just kind of a general rule of thumb to go fleet race.
Okay, so blue's coming in a 1-3, which is a winning combination. It's not particularly, I mean, this kind of looks fine. So they're probably just going to leave it for now because they don't want to screw anything up. Orange is looking like they're trying to break through the 1 rather than hitting back, which is an interesting decision. If I was orange at this point, I probably would have been giving blue a hard time. Because if you imagine if this boat had given this boat a hard time, you would allow 2 of your teammates through, basically. So that was interesting that 2 went for the chase down when that I don't think favored them. I mean, Elliot, would you have hit back in this position?
No, I was going to say what was one thing that orange could have done like just a few seconds ago on the blue boat and just immediately converted onto play 2. They're in the perfect position to do what?
Oh, bear down.
Bear down, yeah. But then what would you do? What would you execute?
Bear down and slow. Like
Slowing, yeah.
cut down.
But
Okay, so
they're-
they're coming into a
yeah.
mark. What could they maybe do with this mark? If they stop right where they are, what's going to happen to the blue boat?
They don't have any rights.
So they're going to have to
Yeah,
go
they wouldn't
underneath
be able to
them,
run the
right?
mark. Yeah.
And then what is orange boat? What's orange boat 2? This guy down here. What are they going to be able to do? This boat will let them in, right? Because it's their teammate. So this boat will sail himself over here. Blue will go underneath, and then that'll let orange through. So this would have been, is that what you would have done, Elliot, here in Mark Trap? Oh.
Exactly the same thing. Yep, that's a perfect setup for a Mark 1 Mark Trap. and they could convert immediately into a play 2, stable or unstable, depending on how the far orange boat shakes out. But they'd be in a 2-3-4 or 2-3-5 and be winning.
So they obviously decided not to do that. So let's see how that does for them. So now blue look at this. This is going to be a port starboard, right?
Yeah.
But for unknown reasons, what is blue doing? Are they sailing at full speed?
No.
No, they're slowing down. Why are they slowing down? I think because they think they're going to get this boat here, but they should be going for the port starboard on this boat. This boat will then have to tack, and then they'd just be able to, you know, either let this guy through by holding him for a really long time, or just generally compressing the fleet. But they're just gonna let that orange boat sail ahead. Whatever.
The British.
That's on them. I think this is kids team racing, in fairness.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what is one in? What combination has one got? So we got
1, 4, 5.
yes.
which
So
is
is one,
losing.
which is winning, right? 1, 4, 5.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because 1 + 4 + 5 is 10. So that's winning. But what did Elliot say in a 1, 4, 5 you need to do? What do boat 4 and 5 need to do? So they need to get as big a gap as possible. So right now there's no 4, 5 gap. So this means it'd be very easy for this boat to break through them, or for these two boats to hit back. So let's see if they go for it. One is already a long way ahead. One should not be this far ahead at this point in the race. There's no point if you're in one of being that far ahead, but let's see what happens.
And don't
So
worry.
one is realize that. Go,
Sorry.
Elliot.
Don't worry if these plays don't immediately just come to your head. It takes a little while to get that immediate recognition and knowing the roles of each boat in each play.
Okay, so are 4, 5 gapping at all? Are these two boats establishing a gap between them? Doesn't really look like it, does it? They're kind of level. So let's see if they work that out later on. So one is rounding. We're still in a 1, 4, 5, but the 4 and 5 are pretty close together. Okay, so if you're orange now, what are you thinking? What are you going to try and do? What would be the way around this, the fact you're losing?
Squeeze out boat number 3 should squeeze out boat number 4.
Is this boat number 3? Sorry, I've lost the numbers. Or do you mean boat in position 3?
Position 3, yeah.
Yeah, so you basically want to get this boat through. But the problem is, have you noticed that orange's teammate has just gone? So this would be a lot easier to do if you had 2 orange boats against 2 blue boats, right? And that would allow you to get this last place orange boat through. But his teammates already rounded the mark, which means this guy is now basically trying to take on 2 boats at the same time. He's not going to have a particularly good time doing that. So let's see. Maybe his teammate's going to sail through. We'll see at this mark. It does look like he's almost rolling over the top of this blue boat. Has he done it? Yeah, okay, so his teammate basically just rolled over the top of this guy. So he sailed himself through. So now what's this boat trying to do? What position does this boat and this boat need to end up in for blue to win this?
Last place needs to overtake.
Right, so basically this orange boat needs passing back. This is one of those piggy situations, right? So let's see if they achieve this. So do you see he's hooking him? So he's taking him up really nicely. So that is exactly the right thing to do. But then do you see what's happened to orange? He's got more boat speed than blue, right? And he's just rolled over the top of him. So by doing that hook, this is something that often happens. You get it slightly wrong. And now orange is almost ahead of blue, right? So they haven't actually gained themselves. They've just swapped this boat from being 4th and 6th to the other way around.
And another thing to consider is that orange boat in the bottom left of the screen that just rolled. They were rolling on the left side of the course looking downwind, or the right side looking upwind. That's the strong side, because if they jibe, they're on to starboard, so they can have complete control. And they didn't jibe here, which is just a very strange thing. Typically, that orange boat at the bottom would have jibed on to starboard and then been able to take out the blue boat, but they didn't.
Okay, so what has this blue boat decided to do? Why do we think he's done that? So my guess is he thinks he can sail faster through. My guess is he thinks that these guys are going to be messing around with each other and he's going to make it through. But why is that kind of horrible on his teammate here? What's going to be the problem for this blue guy if his friend just disappears?
The two orange boats can just like hold the blue boat to last place.
Yeah, it's 2-on-1.
Easily.
So like even
Yeah.
if this guy sails through from 6 forwards, it's not really, I mean, maybe it's going to help if he can get into a 1-3, if he really thinks that like he can get through to get that 1-3. But chances are this boat's going to jibe back before that happens, right? And then you are kind of just like leaving this guy. So we'll see. Maybe he will sail through. Maybe this boat isn't going to be observant enough to realize that the 1-3 conversion is going on. But he's jibed now. He's realized that that blue boat is threatening him.
And so in this whole race, it's not necessarily showing the best thing to do because blue, remember, they're still in that play 4. And in the play 4, when you're in the position of the 1, you don't just want to go sail off, right? You want to stay close to the race. But right now, the 2 and the 3, their narration here is so funny. They're just like, they're kind of sailing off and they should not be doing that.
Because this has basically turned it into a 4-boat team race, and this is kind of irrelevant what's happening up here now. Okay, so orange, what does orange look like they're maybe trying to do here? They're obviously slowing down. What are they doing? So what could orange maybe do to this blue boat? Okay, is orange allowed to luff the blue boat at this point? If it was slightly further back, it would be an easier question. Oh, sorry. Oh gosh, sorry. Don't know why this has popped up. At this point, can orange head over to blue? Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Interestingly, they're sailing into the zone, which would you have just yeeted over to them at that point, Elliot? I probably would have gone further to them.
Maybe. I'm not sure. That one will be a close one.
And so that
Would
hasn't
you have?
been
Would you have just gone?
Yeah, I would have done, I think, because that didn't really work, did it, what they did?
Well, yeah. I would have also done a double jibe there, but there were many things they could have done better there.
So now blue is in 6, which is a big problem. So now what does this boat need to do desperately? This boat here. So this is orange, this is blue, this is blue.
Well, oh.
Okay, so can this guy luff
Pass
orange?
back.
He can luff orange, right? So he can take orange. Can you all see my mouse? He
Yeah.
can take orange up here. Orange is going to go with him, and then blue can sail through this gap. And that's one of the exercises we're going to be practicing on Sunday because it's one of the easiest conversions. So let's see if he luffs. So you can see blue is slowly sailing through. It's quite slow and painful because he's in a wind shadow of 2 boats now.
Question.
Yes.
These decisions are made just via PSI, or is there like shouting going on and like
There's shouting going on normally. Normally it would be like
they have a vision, they see what's happening and they make a decision and then they shout it out.
yeah, so it's a bit of both. So you might think, oh, by shouting, like I'm gonna tell the other team what I'm gonna do. But realistically, as Elliot says, like there is a playbook of exactly what you do in every situation. And the other team know what you're trying to do anyway. So normally the disadvantage of shouting what you're doing to your teammates isn't overruled by letting the other team know what you're doing because like they already know what you're going to be doing. So in this case, you'd be like, yeah, I've got them, sail through. And then this boat would generally shout like, I'm through once they're happy that they've cleared this boat. And that would then tell this guy that he's done his luff enough and that he can come back onto the course like once he's happy that that's a favorable position for him. So there's like a lot of yelling that would be going on.
Sorry. Now that being said, in college sailing on the East Coast, there are a lot of colleges that use code words. Sometimes it can be a little bit ridiculous because when you're not just shouting out play 2 or something, you might be shouting out something more specific like do an up and jibe right here. And that's something you might not want to yell at immediately. But at this level, definitely there's a lot of communication happening. But at the same time, when you get to a higher level, everybody on the team knows what's going on. So you don't have to go and shout, play one, play one. Everybody can see you have boats in first and second. But communication with your teammates is key.
Yeah, it's really important to tell them whether you think like I'm coming through or like I'm not coming through, this isn't working kind of thing. So we'll see. So they're still holding them up a bit, but eventually they're going to bear away. And as they bear away for the mark, the other boat's going to slot behind them, which is what they want. And now they're clear ahead. So now orange boat, blue is now in a 145. So orange now has to do something quite dramatic. So orange now basically has to take out 2 blue boats. This is when you see the advantage of the 4-5 gap. So do you see 4 and 5 are now quite a long way apart? So this boat can do what we call a jibe back. But Elliot, what did you call it? Something different?
The up and jibe.
Up and jibe. So if this boat does the up and jibe or the jibe back, sure, they can take out this boat, but they can't take out this boat as well because that 4-5 gap is there. So this is why you want the 4-5 gap, so that the one boat can't take out 2 boats. Now, if this guy had hung back like he should have done, they might have been able to work together. But because this orange guy has gone off, it's basically a 2 versus 1. So 2 blue versus 1 orange in this situation. So this would be kind of a hard thing for them to sort out. So probably, are they going to jibe? We'll see.
Problem is, up on the left of the screen, the orange boat just rolls him. Oh no.
1 and 2 have really gone rogue in this race.
They really do.
The problem is once you're 1 and you've done this and you're this far ahead, you can't come back and interfere with boats on another leg. So like the moment you've rounded that mark, they're just sitting there realizing they've made a big mistake.
He's halfway up the windward leg. He doesn't have to be that far up.
They have gone.
Also, really there, it's the fault of the 2 for pushing forward. The 1 is happy if the 2 pushes with them.
Okay, so what is this boat trying to do at this point? Why is he like messing with orange? What's he establishing here? So why didn't he just, the moment blue rounded, why didn't he just round behind him?
It's like a 1-4-5 if they want to increase the gap.
Yeah, so he's putting that 4-5 gap in there. So let's see.
What I always found so strange about this video is their boat handling is really good, but then just some of their plays are just interesting. So there you saw at the bottom of the screen, the orange boat tacked out and the blue boat in the 5 just immediately tacked on him. Because again, this is the 5 in a play 4. They're gapping the 6, the most fun thing to do. They're just tacking on him, just hammering him with dirty air, not letting him finish the race at all.
So this is generally called a tacking battle, what's going on here. And basically orange has no hope but to tack because he's not going to sail through. And blue just tacks with him every single time. And actually often if you can get someone to start a tacking battle with you, it's a great way to like get them distracted because people get really into them and then forget what's going on in the rest of the race.
Here the orange boat gets really into the pair and back and just totally forgets about his teammate. Oh, it's amazing.
So what's happened to blue now? What position is blue in now?
Huh.
A 1-3, right? You've got 1, 2, 3. So blue's done really well on this final beat. And orange is now like, oh no, they're in a 1-3 and is like trying to slow blue, but like, is that really going to be doing much?
So
Not really with
like 10 seconds. Like to where that orange boat starts to duck down and really kind of mess everything up. Could you back up to that point?
Oh, do you want me to back up? Sorry, Elliot.
Yeah. To where that orange boat kind of ducked down and gave blue the 1-3. So back before that this orange boat kind of in the middle of the screen. Yeah, so here you see orange is in the 2-3, right? Orange has the 2-3-6, okay? So they are losing, but their goal is a play 2. So here, before that orange boat in the middle ducked down and just totally abandoned their teammate, what they should have been doing is establishing what we call the double team. So both those two orange boats get on the blue boat's air. What you do is you have basically on the passbacks, right? Sometimes you want to pin the boat. Sometimes you want to give them dirty air. If you have two boats doing a double team, you can do both. One boat giving a ton of dirty air, the other boat pinning. And that blue boat is just going to get completely hammered and just hosed out the back.
So this orange boat could have come down into this space, basically, would be one option. And then the idea is this boat is going to end up in 6. What have we got? We got orange. Is this one orange, Elliot?
Yes.
Or would you have gone for the other pair here? No.
No, definitely the double team, because you want to double team that until the blue boats are on the same ladder rung, and then you split and you make that pass back happen while the other boat is balancing the blue.
See what they do instead. So they decide to head for, so in a second they do it. So they're going down. They don't quite.
And then they just have a little brain fart here, I think.
And then they tack. Yeah, they decide to go with one pair and then split off to the other, don't they?
Oh, it's amazing.
So close, but so far.
They were very close, yeah. So now blue was in a play 4. What play is blue in now? Their combination is 1-3-6 or 1-3-5. So they're in an unstable play 1. And
So why did this boat come down, I guess, is what Elliot's asking. Why didn't he just sail across the line at this point? He's trying to interfere with this boat, right? I think he was going to go and give them dirty wind, and then they tacked. He's just going to attack with them in a second.
So it's the same situation as before, the unstable play 1, 1-3 anything. You want to get that into a 1-2 anything. Even on the final beat. Oh, yeah.
Why did the blue boat tack? Because he was on a starboard tack anyway, and could have just ticked the orange boat further away.
Do you mean this boat?
Yeah, like if you
The orange boat had already started his tack, so he tacked to stay with the orange boat. Because I think he was hoping to, he's kind of threatening the orange boat here, but I think he was hoping to give him some dirty wind as well. But he also just wants to stay with his teammate. If he went off to the other side, the other boat was going to tack behind him. So staying on the other side wouldn't really have helped that much.
And also to answer your question there, the orange boat, let's say that blue boat in first place tried to get him on starboard, right? The orange boat would just duck him. And then the orange boat is sitting on the boat in third place with nobody giving him dirty air, right? Another thing to consider, that orange boat was going to the right side of the course. And if the boat in first place tried to get him on starboard and then missed and then went off to the left side of the course, when they come back together, the orange boat will be on starboard and might be able to get him on starboard and get first place. So you never want to give up the power of the right. That's why you tacked.
In this situation, obviously orange is slowing blue a little bit. What blue, this is going to end with a 1-3. There's very little that you can do at this point. Like they are going to be able to slow them. This boat can just foot off a bit and head down because the pin end of the line is over here. So realistically, by the time you've got to this point in the race, as that orange boat, there's nothing you can do. You can slow and hope some sort of miracle happens, but see, now he's trying to slow him more by putting him in his dirty wind, but there's no other orange boat in sight. So it's just kind of pointless at this point.
Dip down and take him head to wind.
They're doing it for their own entertainment, but it was kind of game over long before that point.
It was game over as soon as that orange boat stopped the double team and just kind of went off to be in the 6.
When the orange boat turned around and went backwards.
Yeah, that's
yes, exactly. Now, there are a lot of times in team racing when you do want to go backwards. That is a legitimate thing to do if that's your role. But that orange boat's role in that situation was, again, double teaming the 4, right? Because when you're in play 4, you want that 4-5 gap, right? That makes it stable. Opposite side, if you're losing to a play 4, you want to close the 4-5 gap, right? Double team that boat, and your boat in the 6 needs to be pushing forward. But anyway, that was a lot of information. So
Yeah.
We'll do some simple exercises on Sunday. So yeah, that's team racing. So we can. Any other questions before we go?
Yeah. Well, I'll post the slideshow with a couple extra resources, the Google Slides, so that you guys can look at it, and then also the recording of this meeting in the announcements. And if there are no more questions, then hopefully, I'm not sure how many of you guys are signed up for Sunday. But either way, yeah, this is team racing. It's a really fantastic addition to the sport, makes it a lot more complex and interesting and fun. So
A little red flag, or is that we're not going to deal with that?
Because we'll just be doing like pass back practice. You're not even going to be in teams, like you're going to alternate between. So it's literally just for you to work out what works. And like the first 10 times you're going to get rolled by the boat coming in. So it's really just like, we're just going to be practicing the maneuvers. We maybe will eventually shift to team racing, but I think it's something we want to do in winter, because if it's too windy, you just can't team race properly. So it's got to be done. You can see all of these videos are done in winds lighter than the typical Cal sailing Sunday, and there's a reason for that. And also another thing, I don't know if they do this in the US, but we have cut down sails. So if it's more than like 15 knots, they'll put smaller sails on to make it more fun as well, because they want you to keep team racing. They don't want it just to become a fleet race. So they will continuously downsize the sails so that you can continue team racing. We don't really have that luxury at Cal. So
yeah. So the biggest thing to review before Sunday is you can just look at the slideshow, and it's just the pig in the middle, because that's what we're basically going to be doing the entire time. Pig in the middle, and then the mark traps. And that'll be most of the day.
Elliot, I had a question for you about the code things. In the UK,
yeah.
people swap teams continuously, so it would never work. Do PhD students not sail in the US?
Oh, no, it's just undergrads.
Oh, because like if I went from Oxford to Cambridge, I would take all of the codes with me, right? And there's like a constant transfer every year. So there's
I think it's when kind of you get, these top teams, they get very tight knit and they just sail together. The same 3 skippers and crews will sail together for 1 or 2 years, and they just come up with it themselves. And sometimes
they never leave and go to another university, because then they're not allowed to compete in the US then.
It's just not typical for them to leave. And if they do, like, we had a guy who was a transfer from Roger Williams who came to our team, and he brought all their playbooks and all their documents to us. So like it does happen, but it's not super critical.
Okay.
Most teams do not do code words.
In the UK, it was like a constant swap of people from like undergrad to PhD, of like everyone ended up mixing up, and you're like, oh, isn't this Southampton? Oh no, they've already moved. They're doing their PhD now at Bristol. Okay.
Oh, that'd be crazy, competing against all your old teammates.
Yeah. Okay. See you folks on Sunday.
Yeah, thanks for running this. Super cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for showing up.
It's the chess of sailing.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, see you. All right.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.